Hey, good morning, everybody. And I am Steve Farrell. I'm a co-founder and the executive director of Humanities Team. As you can see, I'm here with a very special host today. I'm going to give him a proper introduction shortly. Ken D. Foster. Big shout out to all of our friends that are here in the green room with us. We can actually see many of you on screen, so I'll wave at you. Thanks for being here with us. Always nice to have this live audience. Also, to all of our friends and Humanities Team out on Facebook, the Sign Network, John Raymer, friends of Ken D. Foster. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here today. We've got an exciting program in store for you, actually very exciting program in store for you. This is a live program, so we invite you, as always, to put your comments and questions there in the chat on social media. It's brought back to the studio and also to Ken Foster, and we'll get to your questions and comments during the hour. Look forward to answering any questions that you might have. So, Ken, we have a very special program in store here today, don't we?
We have a super exciting program. And you know what I love about doing these programs with you, Steve, is that people always tell me that they get information they need to transform their own lives. So I'm excited to take a deep dive into a little bit. We're going to talk about you today. We're going to talk a little bit about maybe a whole lot about your new book, A New Universal Dream, and tap into what is that universal dream and how does it impact us and how can we apply that in our lives. So it's exciting program to be in.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and we'll get to that's a good question, isn't it? What is that universal dream? Where do you want to start, Ken?
Well, I think I want to start by introducing you, Steve. And some of you have been to these programs before, but some of you haven't. So let me introduce you to Steve Farrell and tell you a little bit about his accomplishments and what you can expect today. So Steve Farrell has attained the pinnacle of success as a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, founding 2 tech firms. Then he pivoted into lead Humanities Team, which is a global nonprofit helping people everywhere to awaken their interconnectedness through platforms such as the New Humanities Stream. So Steve does have a new book out. It's called A New Universal Dream. It details his journey from a young entrepreneur to live a life of service to humanity. And I want to say this, in that book, Steve helps us to transform the definition of success, to really be able to he stepped into his power over a period of time, but he leads a journey, he leads a way for all of us to be able to follow that journey and really do what it takes today to become the best version of yourself. So it's an exciting process that Steve has gone through, and this book is going to be amazing. So Steve, let's jump into it. All right. Tell me a little bit about why you wrote this book. What motivated you to get into this?
Well, first, thank you for that generous introduction. I really appreciate it, Ken. So I felt, this conscious journey is really about following that still small voice, right? And not the worldly noise, what friends have to say, coworkers have to say, parents have to say, brothers and sisters have to say. They all mean well, but they don't really know what your life is about. And so when you follow that still small voice, which I'm going to call your soul, then you really get pointed straight. You get pointed right into the things that you were born into the world to do. So I was pointed in the world.
I think one of the challenges people have is how do they find that still small voice? And, I think that's a challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people, Ken. So let's talk about that, and then we'll come back to my story. I think, it's called the still small voice. For me, it's not actually a voice. It's a feeling, and it's a very clear feeling. So right out of college, I'm on the East Coast there living with my mom who's divorced, my 6 brothers and sisters, and I was told, the feeling was I needed to move to San Francisco. And then all of the other feelings came of I needed to leave business, I needed to start a business, start a second business. I needed to leave business altogether. So this is what I know. When whether it's a voice or a feeling, there's a logic center of our mind, and then there's a wisdom center of our soul. And we can feel when we're following the guidance of the wisdom center of our soul. What happens to me when I don't follow it is I get cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when, you can feel this chatter of, hey, this isn't exactly what you're supposed to be doing. I felt cognitive dissonance. I talk about this in my book when I was on private jets and in a private ski area, especially in the private ski area. This one that Bill Gates and all of these guys hang out in. My wife and I were there with this business group that I was a part of. And it just felt like, with everything going on in the world, what am I doing here? Is this really where I'm supposed to be? So this is how it works for me, is I get cognitive dissonance. I get a voice coming on when I'm off target. And then I feel like I'm in flow. I feel really good. I feel blessed when I'm on target. So I don't have to work too hard at it. I think maybe the big challenge here is many people give undue influence to parents, to brothers and sisters, to best friends, and they'll tune out what they're feeling because they're getting advice from all of these parties I just mentioned to do something different. I'll give you an example. When I left IBM to start my two companies, my family and friends at IBM, where I was on a track to executive function, they thought, what have you lost your mind? You've got this great career and you're leaving and you're going to go with used furniture, sit in a little inexpensive executive suite, and you're going to start a company and you hope that this is going to be something, Steve? Or after I launched these two companies that grew to 75 million in revenue, and I said, wow, I've been called to leave business altogether. My life is now going to go in a direction toward being spiritual, toward being conscious, toward being family. Again, I had my older brother fly out, and he said, wow, hey, our whole family's just real concerned for you. We hope you're going to be okay. Do you really need to do this? You kind of won the lottery here in Silicon Valley. Why do you want to cash out now? So this is part of the reason, coming back to why I wrote the book, this is part of the reason I wrote the book, because the conscious journey has these arduous portions of the path, like that, where the whole world is telling you, hey, red alert, I'm not so sure you should do that. And you have to continue to listen to that still small voice and push through and do what you're being told to do. Don't buckle under. And so part of my, as you know, Ken, what I do with this book is it's a 50-year true story from when I'm 12 years old. And there are many moments during the book where I'm extremely challenged, where sometimes I'm off track, and where I have these learning moments of, oh, I need to do this. And what I do in the book is I stop at each of those learning moments and I say, this is what I learned here and what you might learn as well, from this journey of mine. And so the book was really written for the reader that on the conscious journey, because there are many of these challenges. And my hope is that just through all of the things that I've been through, that some of these learning moments can be learning moments for others. Some of the tools that I picked up on this conscious journey can become tools for others. It can become an aid, assistance to people on the conscious journey. Once we get well down the track where I am now with my colleagues and partners in Humanities Team, including you, Ken, Jim Gray, who you'll meet before we go off the air, and my other colleagues and partners that you can't see, it's fantastic. Once you create a conscious culture, a conscious organization, and you're in service to the world around you and to humanity, which is what Humanities Team is. We're, of course, a 501c3 nonprofit. It's beautiful. It's like drift diving. And it's not that I don't have challenges. People that know my story know I have a son who I adopted at birth who has something called pyroluria. They're huge challenges that he faces and that our family faces. So it's not that the challenges go away. It's just that where you're now more in this kind of like drift diving state where you're in this place of connection, of communing with nature and the world around you. And you're not any longer in that old roller coaster, emotional up and down. Today's a good day, tomorrow's a bad day. We've all experienced that where we're not conscious. And, we're saying the moon is in retrograde and stuff. All of that goes away when we're
Well,
on this conscious journey.
I really like the fact that you've mapped your consciousness into consciousness. In other words, where you started and where you are today, and how the flow. We're talking about the synchronicity of the flow once you're in it, and once you learn how some of the principles to really let go of some of the old rules and some other people's opinions and that type of thing. I'm wondering though, Steve, how has your definition of success changed? And maybe, I think your definition of success is probably what we want to model today. So I'm wondering where it was and where it is today.
Yeah, boy, that's a big question, and it's changed dramatically. So where it was is easy because it's where I think a lot of people's definition of success is, where you want to start or be a part of something that is that grows pretty big and that has reach and impact in the world, and that has a lot of financial remuneration, and that's doing things, that's giving back. Which is what I did with these two companies. We adopted our local high school that needed the money. We did actually a lot of service projects. We had open book management, so everybody was following our finances that inside of the company. We were doing a lot of good stuff, and for most people, I would say they would say that would be their definition of success. Now, it shifted dramatically for me. And the reason it did is two things. One, if you look out in the world at the challenges here now with global warming and extreme weather conditions and Ukraine that could become World War III and all of these various things, what is at the basis of this is that we are not living into ultimate reality, into who we really are. Science today is affirming that we're actually, I often talk about the Resonance Science Foundation, Nassim Haramein, and this unified field research that he's bringing out, and that was a part of our Forbidden Science Masterclass, where it says that we are all a part of this one presence. That Albert Einstein thought that this was going to be so, right? To his grave, he was working on his unified field research. He never quite got there. They didn't quite have the science there 75 years ago when he was working on it. He passed. Nassim Haramein and many others, these three physicists that won the Nobel Prize for Physics in October last year for entanglement, which is one of the functions of oneness. Science everywhere now is affirming that actually we're not, that an optical delusion isn't serving us. We all grew up thinking we were separate, and we're not. We're actually energetic. There's one energy that is inhabiting the whole universe, and we're all faces of that energy, or waves to the ocean. We can use lots of different metaphors here. There are 8 billion faces here. We're all faces of the one. This is what science is proving to be true, and we're energetic beings, vibrational beings, which means that we want to live at a very high vibration. Almost nobody that I know grew up in a classroom understanding this science. This was not the narrative. It wasn't the cultural story. It wasn't what was taught in the classroom. We were taught lucky sperm meets an egg, one life, then we go to bones and dust. Better enjoy your life here. It turns out, everything has been turned upside down, or better yet, right side up by this new science. It's saying there is no such thing as death, that we have in this one presence. We have everlasting life. We have unlimited potential. So let me come back then to this definition of success. My new definition of success is, well, I'm a part of the one. I'm one of 8 billion faces here on the planet. I now understand that I'm my true self, a capital S in the self, not a smaller self. The difference is, in the smaller self, I'm Steve, just the son of Joe and Linda, and building some kind of financial success that largely goes to my family, and the self with a capital S, I'm awakened to and embodying and expressing who I really am. I'm one of 8 billion faces here on the planet, that the planet actually has a soul. Plant life and animal life here counts. So now I'm serving the we, I'm serving the world around me. It's what we naturally do when we become conscious. It's no longer just about the little fence posts around the little family. It's now around the wider fence posts around the 8 billion people and the whole planet, and assisting the planet. This is a challenging time. This is, even unconscious people, one thing almost everybody will agree to today is that there are enormous challenges out in the world, and almost every parent here on the earth is concerned about their kids and future generations inhabiting this planet. Will there be a nice home for these young people as they grow up, and then new people born into the world? In this larger self, this is what we're attending to. We're in service to the world around us. It's not that we can do everything, but we can all do something. And my something was to be part of Humanity's team, help launch it actually with Neale Donald Walsch 20 years ago, and to create all of the incredible things that we've created, a streaming platform called Humanity Stream Plus, the Global Oneness Summit, etc. So I want to just really square the edges on this question you asked, success. So old success, financial wealth, a little benevolence. New success, understanding who I really am, clearing away the optical delusion, seeing clearly that we are all a part of the one, serving the one, and before I pass, before I transition, my continuation day comes, because of course we don't die. If we're conscious, we know that. That this earth is in much better shape, and this whole notion of existential crisis is gone, because we've together awakened, lived into our true humanity, our true divine self, and in so doing, created a sustainable and flourishing planet. So my story is, if we back up to the book, is from a 12-year-old kid growing up with a single mom who was divorced. I had 6 brothers and sisters in a very modest little home, to finding myself, as you mentioned in your introduction, Ken, at the center of wealth creation in Silicon Valley. Governor Newsom was in my chapter there. Many other people, Andy Cunningham, who was the marketing genius working with Steve Jobs, Greg Franklin of Franklin Templeton Funds, the CEO, young guy, that was running it. Many other talented people. They were all part of my chapter when I was there in Silicon Valley. So I went from that to just rejecting that and seeing this whole new definition of success. And that's what I set out on during my conscious journey there in the late 1990s.
I love it. Well, listen, I've got so many questions to ask you here. We do have a question. Let's see, in the chat. So somebody said that love to hear the rest of the sentence. Steve was saying about things that go retrograde. What do we say? Let's see, saying it doesn't matter what's happening in the heavens, or you just ride the waves. I think what they're asking about, Steve, here is that, is it, where's the fine line between self-will and divine will? What's the ultimate plan here? How do we fit into that plan? I think those questions are really coming up.
Yeah. There's so many things we could talk about here, but let me talk about how it works for me. The way it works for me is, again, I was drawing the distinction between kind of the noise in the world, the ups and downs, roller coaster, mental, emotional life, bad day, good day. And then there is this whole, the optical delusion is gone. We get that, my God, there is one energy in the entire universe, and we are inseparable from it, which is to say the universe doesn't exist without you, Ken. It doesn't exist without me, and it doesn't exist without any of the viewers here. We are integral to the universe, inseparable from. Tuning in to that one energy is a really simple process. I do it intuitively every day. I live in it all day long. I live in it when I sleep. Right now, just so we can, this isn't too abstract, okay? There's nature right out my window, okay? People that are here with nature, or thinking about maybe your family or your kids, or going to something that is extremely meaningful and being in a connection state with it, communing with it, which I can do right now as I'm looking at nature, which is beautiful, by the way. It's got a gentle sway. There's a light breeze here in Boulder this morning. I'm not in that whole roller coaster thing up and down. That's not my world. I believe when Jesus said, live in the world, but don't be of it, is he was talking about what I'm talking about here, is we don't want to be of this world with all of its mental, emotional ups and downs and the optical delusions. We're all separate. There's no happiness or joy there. But we can actually live in this frequency of the universe. Some people speculate it's 432 hertz if you go on YouTube. I don't know if that is the frequency or not, but I know when I bike right out to a lake every morning. I did this morning. I look out my window and I can feel the frequency of the universe. I can become a circuit to the universe. So I'm not a circuit to all of the up and down and people, this kind of stuff. I'm a circuit to the universe of which I'm a part. So I'm not sure if I'm getting to your question here.
No, I think you're really getting there, and I believe that a lot of people's intuition is undeveloped. Okay, it's like you got a gut feeling that it might be 50% accurate. What you're talking about is something different. I'm hearing you're talking about setting the intention and understanding the principles of the universe so that you can embrace it in a much greater way. That you become this that you've been chasing, right? You become it, you are it. And I think we're going down that path. What's your comments on that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's right. And there's a lot more to it as well. Metaphysics is the linchpin of the universe, right? This is what is said in Conversations with God and elsewhere. It's getting a lot of focus right now. Joe Dispenza doesn't use the term metaphysics, but when he talks about the quantum field and creating in the quantum field, that's metaphysics, okay? Everybody these days seems to be watching Joe Dispenza on TikTok and going to his seminars and things. This is one of the functions of being a part of the universe. It's where instead of being driven by the worldly things of where you're a little fearful of what's coming, a little concerned about the past, instead we're actually during the morning, throughout the day, we're finding time to really vision into this beautiful future that we're creating. And what I vision into is this world that's healing, that's understood. The optical delusion is melting away. People are starting to see their oneness. People are living into it in my home, demonstrating that with my wife and my kids. And our humanities team program, seeking out these leaders. You'll see on Saturday, Eben Alexander, who wrote Proof of Heaven, this best-selling book. You'll see we're going to start promoting on Saturday a brand new program with Eben Alexander, Suzanne Giesman, who's fabulous, Karen Newell. So seeking out people like that we can bring in with these amazing, incredible new teachings that are part of these master classes we're creating, and putting them on this streaming platform, and then making the streaming platform really inexpensive and translating it so people in every home can go through these master classes and understand these teachings that sometimes are esoteric until you go through the master class, and then it becomes very practical and we understand how to live into the fullness of it.
I love it. Well, listen, I know our audience, and just, there's a lot of people going through transformation, transitions, change. There's a lot going on in people's lives, Steve. And they're wondering, where that pivotal moment is. How do you know when that pivotal moment is to make that change? So you made huge changes in your life. Was there a key moment when everything started to shift for you?
There was. Yeah, it was in the 1990s, there in the middle 1990s, actually on the later side, right around 1997. So about 25 years ago. And what that moment was for me was where I was sitting. Conversations with God, Book 1 was the particular awakening device for me. The God that I'd always known, that loves us unconditionally, adores us actually, every single one of us. We're part of her, right? It's not like we're just creations that are floating over somewhere. We're part of her or him, right? That's what oneness means. There's no separation, and it's just energy of pure love, of adoration. And again, from the time I was a young person, I'd felt that. And so when I read Conversations with God, Book 1, I came into the God of my understanding, this God that is perfect love. And I was like, wow, and that we're one with her/him and so much more. As we know, there are many teachings here in the Conversations with God book. But what that moment was then, Ken, was where I sat with two possibilities, and I was looking out a window. And one possibility was that I was primarily the son of Linda, my mom, and Joe, my dad, or I was primarily a part offspring of the one, which goes by any name we want to. We use the divine here in Humanities team, but universe or cosmos works fine if you want to use that, or God, or love, or life, or whatever. And that my parents were just like airport terminals, the delivery vehicle for me to come to the earth. So I was one or the other, primarily. And I decided that it was the second one, that I was primarily offspring of the one, an energetic being, son of the one, here with an everlasting life, which means that I have a very short chapter here in my eternal journey, and I'm on a planet that happens to be very challenged. And in fact, the planet is especially in the 1990s, it's still to a great extent true today, but much better, was asleep to its awareness that we're even part of the one. But as we know, the teachings we grew up with, and I was an altar boy in the Catholic Church, so I knew the Catholic Church well. The teachings that we grew up with were that God is up in the sky somewhere, right? He's and it's a he, and right, and then there's a devil, and it's down there at the center of the earth or somewhere, and we're all separate from each other, and we hope that we go up and we don't go down. That's the teaching. This other teaching, which is ultimate reality, it's what Einstein envisioned, what scientists are saying is true, what the mystics said was true, which in 450 BCE, right, Plato said that there's no such thing as plural consciousness. There's just one consciousness of which we're all a part. Hippocrates was right in that same 50-year time frame, said the same thing. This was 2,500 years ago. And then we could sit here for hours and I could tell you of what all these other scientists, Erwin Schrödinger, David Bohm, I've mentioned Albert Einstein, Sir James Jeans. Read my book, I've got it all in there. I go through the science of this, but science has been sharing, that this cultural story, this narrative that we grew up with just simply is not true. And
would you say, Steve, that when you came to that conclusion, that it pretty much changed everything for you? I mean, you obviously had to brace courage to step into your courage to embrace this, because everything and everybody around you is saying, this isn't the way, except for what you were tuning into. So it sounds like everything changed for you, and you, as a result of embracing this.
It did, and everything changed, and that was when I decided I had to sell everything that I was involved in Silicon Valley, this business association I was in with. These are terrific people, by the way. Governor Newsom and Andy Cunningham and Greg Franklin. I mean, terrific, bright people, motivated, driven. They're terrific people. But I had to say goodbye. Why? Because I said to them, I said, my path now is, I used the term back then, more spiritual. Conscious didn't have as much light of day around it back then. But it's a conscious path, or it's also a spiritual path. And, all of these business things that I was doing with this group didn't really have any application in my life anymore. So, yeah, I had to let a lot of doors close, sell a lot of things, leave a lot of things, move to Boulder from the Bay Area. Though the Bay Area has many pockets now of awakened people, and to serve this new dream that emerged, this new universal dream that emerged for me.
I love that. You're living the new universal dream. The name of the book, A New Universal Dream. I love that. By the way, can people get the book? Where can they get it? On Amazon or through Humanities Stream? Where can we get the book?
Yeah, I think you could try your local bookstore, Barnes and Noble and stuff. I know on Amazon, part of the reason we're doing the program today is the day it ships. The very first day that it ships is today. So, and if you go to a newuniversaldream.com, you can read about the book. The first 4 chapters are opened up, so you can actually read the first 4 chapters for free. And then one of the things we're doing in Humanities Team, because we want to get the book out in the world to support people on their conscious journey, is we're giving away my masterclass, which is called Conscious Leadership. It's a $299 masterclass. And when you just enter your email address and your receipt number, we give you my masterclass. And the book, you order today, it ships today. So kind of a neat deal.
That's really cool. All right, let me get back to living oneness. We've talked about some of the esoteric and science behind it, and we now want to get into the practical with you. In the book, I know you talk about living oneness. How do we apply the principles in the book into our life? How do we live oneness?
Many, many ways. Let me give you a couple of examples here. In conscious business, there is a ton of resource and money right now flowing into regenerative agriculture all over the world. The old way of fertilizing and pesticides and GMOs, which is largely still the case for agriculture worldwide, but there is a huge amount of attention, focus, and money pouring into regenerative agriculture because the soil won't last forever. The way we've been farming, and it doesn't respect the land the way we've been farming. It doesn't respect animal life or plant life. It doesn't respect the owners of the land. And so regenerative farming is now, as the first principle, focusing on life, animal life, which is brought in to be part of regenerative farming, plant life, what is harvested, and the health of what is harvested, the family that is on the land, all of these things. Life is now the prime thing in regenerative agriculture. And as I mentioned, this isn't being done on a small scale in Portugal, in South America, here certainly in the United States. There's a ton of focus on this, where we're leaving this whole top line growth and bottom line growth thing for a holistic way of growing food on the land and supporting the soil. So here's one example. Let me give you another example. We were just talking about this yesterday in Humanities Team. Here in the United States, Memorial Day is on Monday. Memorial Day is going to take on new characteristics. Yes, we'll continue to be devoted to and celebrate and honor those who gave their lives in wars, right? And their family lost these loved ones. And there's a tremendous pain by these families who lost their loved ones, and that pain often is enduring. And that will continue to be a major feature of Memorial Day. But a new feature that'll be part of Memorial Day is understanding these people did not die. They did not, absolutely, positively, they did not die. And we work with the mediums and the near-death experiences. I mentioned Proof of Heaven, this book, this program we're launching. You'll read about it on Saturday. Where you've got a neurosurgeon who was steeped in science, didn't have any spiritual beliefs, and then he had his NDE, and wow, does he have a different understanding. And of course, in the Humanities Team, we're bringing these people forward left and right, a new NDE, a new medium experience. Many more of those kinds of programs will be launching. So, and what this demonstrates, what people can learn from this is there's way too much wisdom and knowledge now that is sharing that we can simply lift the veil. We can learn ourselves to be mediums to loved ones. I regularly talk to my dad now, which I didn't. I talk to my grandparents sometimes who will drop in. There is no such thing as death. There's everlasting life. So yes, there's the pain on Memorial Day of those families who lost loved ones during war conditions and these incredibly brave people that we're celebrating and the pain that the families felt. But now there'll be the added dimension of they're not gone. They're still here. And in fact, they would love to be in touch with their loved ones if their loved ones want to just learn a few tools for how they can be in touch directly or use a medium like a Suzanne Giesemann or a Karen Noe or a James Van Praagh. There are many talented mediums. We suggest in the humanities team what the medium suggests, which is don't just use the medium. That's going to give you 1 hour of really high quality time with your loved one. Learn the tools yourself so you can be in touch with your own, mom, dad, kids, aunt, uncle, great grandparents, angels, guides. So that's going to be a very different world, and we're already beginning to live into it, where we're lifting the veil and understanding there's the physical and the non-physical, and they're resident side by side.
Well, they say in the higher ages that veil gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and yet, we don't have to wait for the higher ages to come here. Steve is talking about what it takes courage to do, get outside your own paradigm, let go of some of your old rules, old ways of thinking, and step into the new paradigm, the new way of exploring the inner worlds, and of course, you continue to live in the outer worlds. One of the things that comes up in the book, Steve, is the quantum field. You talked about, Joe Dispenza talks about it, a resonance field or superconscious mind or universal mind, whatever name we give that. But let's just use quantum field right now. Let's talk about, how do we focus on the manifesting energy of the cosmic field, the quantum field, so that we can start to generate more happiness, more success, more maybe wealth in our lives. You want to touch on that?
Sure. Yeah, it's a big thing right now. And again, out on TikTok, you'll see a lot of this, Joe Dispenza and others that are talking about it. What it is just, so this is a feature of oneness. I want to just start there. In the world we grew up in, just lucky sperm, one life to live, go to bones and dust. There's no explanation for creating in the quantum field. It was not discussed, there was no teaching, and frankly, it wouldn't work, where everything is separate and it's a Newtonian world. It just doesn't work. Now, what we're learning, from long before Joe Dispenza, Deborah Poneman in the 80s, and then Esther Hicks, 20 years ago, and now, yes, Joe Dispenza and others are teaching, this thing that is one of the functions of oneness. We're energetic beings, which means that if we vision into a future and we feel a strong desire for that future. So I do this I mentioned my son, with my wife also, where I'm seeing me and my son doing these things and me and my wife doing these things. And even with this book, seeing things that I'm doing where I'm supporting people through the media, as the media is talking about the book, and seeing this world healing where it's like ice sheets just dropping as the world is heating up, warming up to its true nature, where we vision it and we feel this strong desire for it. We don't concentrate at all on the how. That's not, in oneness, we don't ever need to concentrate on how this happens. All we need to do is put our full energy, our full attention, our full desire into that future vision. This is what Joe Dispenza calls creating in the quantum field. It's actually metaphysics is what it really is. It's metaphysics, and it's a feature of oneness, which is that we actually were powerful creators. We're all sons and daughters of the one, right? There's no separation. God lives right here in me and you, Ken, in viewers. And once we really understand that and we live into the fullness of that and there's no separation and we go into this powerful visioning and there's powerful desire, guess what will happen? Watch what starts showing up in your life. Watch what happens. It will come into your life. It's actually been demonstrated. It's science.
I love it. I'll bet you some of our viewers right now are wondering, what is Steve Farrell's daily routine? Like, how do you show up on a daily basis? I think people will be interested in that, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. Well, now we're on this many years in. It's a lot easier than I mentioned some of those early years and family flying out, and boy, Steve, don't jump off this cliff. It was tough, and I admit that it was tough, and that was part of the reason I wrote the book. Now, oh my gosh, I mean, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. I live in the home I want to live in. I'm married to the person I want to be married to. I have a son and daughter, and that I want is my son and daughter. Yes, my son and he has some many challenges because of this pyroluria thing, but I love this boy to the end of the earth. My dog, Sadie. The things I do, I bike ride around a lake in the morning early. I walk the dog. I live in this, when I talked about drift diving, it's kind of like being in flow. That's what I live in. Even when I've got challenges, I'm not going to, things are falling apart. I stay most of the time in this more of a drift diving state. I love listening to spiritual music, drives my family crazy a lot. They kid me about that. Oh God, there's Steve coming up the stairs with his music on. Spiritual music, it just keeps I like this communing connection thing. I like to remain in this state of connection. So where I'm playing the music, where I'm looking out at nature, where I'm doing these things, where I'm doing this, the prayer and meditation that I talked about, all of these things keep me grounded in this place of connection, of real connection, of service, of communing. And that's really, that's living in this world, but not being of the world. And it's where we can have maximum impact and and candidly just be happy.
Well, you're talking my talk, intentional living, and it works. It absolutely works. Steve, I'm curious. How do you believe we can speed our evolution so that we can, as a species, or as individuals, and as communities and species, we can become more conscious? How can we speed the evolution?
3 E's. 1, educate ourselves. And this is why we have our streaming platform. Again, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we've got this streaming platform called Humanity Stream Plus. You go to humanitystream.net. You can read about it. And we're a nonprofit, so we're always bringing the price down, the annual price down, the monthly price down. We even give it away as a 1-for-1 to people, especially out of the country, who can't afford it at any price. So 1, educate. We need to become aware ourselves. These things that you and I are talking about, Ken, where we understand that we're a part of the one, that there's no separation. We're living into that fully. We're communing into it. The first step is to really understand that and to be very clear about what it is and how it works. The second step is to embody and express that. What would be the benefit in understanding it and not embodying it and expressing it? That's where the real fruit is. I'll call it the new spirituality, which could be a whole discussion for some future program we do, where we're living in this state of knowing we're spiritual beings inhabiting a physical body, and it's not just some cerebral thing. There's this beauty of, these terms that have been thrown around: beauty, goodness, and grace, and truth, and blessing, and joy, and laughter, and all of these things. That's what we experience in this new spirituality, where we are not focused on these crazy things, television, watching crazy television shows or movies with too much violence, and instead doing these things, being in nature, being with family, spending high quality time, working with coworkers in an environment where we're doing high quality things for the world. These are things that just keep us in this really beautiful state. So that's the third set of E's. Educate, then embody, express, and the fourth E is engage others. Just what we're doing here. Invite others to live consciously. Even if the world were not challenged, and it is extremely challenged, why would we want to live any other way? Right? Science is saying, get the optical delusion out of the way. It's not real. There is no plural in consciousness. Scientists are saying this. It isn't just mystics anymore, right? Why not? So spend enough time getting yourself educated to say, my God, this is true. I wasn't taught any of this in school, but it's true. And then we start living into it. And then it's a beautiful thing. And if it's a beautiful thing, why wouldn't we tell our family and our friends and our coworkers? Not that we're proselytizing. I don't proselytize. even with my kids, I'm not going to proselytize. I'm simply going to invite, or engage and say, hey, have you tried? Is this a part of your day? Is it a part of your routine? You know. So those
Absolutely.
are
Well,
things. So
listen, we
when we
have,
all do those things, we get there.
the sciences are also letting us know that we're holographic beings, right, Steve? That what's in the micro is in the macro. We're stardust, literally, and they can show that. They can prove that now. Listen, we have a question from Joanne. She says she came in late, and she'd like to wonder if you would go back to what your family thought when you left Silicon Valley. I can imagine.
Oh gosh. Yeah, this was a hard time. It wasn't a hard time until I knew what I was supposed to do. I knew my dad also was alive back then and was wondering, about this. He had conversations with me. Steve, what are you doing? I'd just come out of a second company. We'd venture backed. We'd raised all this over $100 million. And I was connected then to the venture capitalists that were the largest and biggest, best ones in Silicon Valley. And one of them was even asking me to go on boards because, you learn a lot through this. And I said no. And so they wondered, why throw that all away? You're lucky that you ever got the connection. Why do you need to throw it away? And what I shared was what I'm sharing here, is, hey, look at the world around us. And if ever there were a time that we really check in to what we're supposed to do, it's now, right? And what I'm getting, in a very strong way, is that I'm supposed to be focusing in a different direction now, and where I'm going to be part of this group that's awakening people out in the world to who we really are, and so we can live into it fully. But I want to be clear. My family thought I'd lost my mind. My mother was the only one that really was quite supportive of this. And in those early days of Humanities Team, she would fly around with me. She went to South Africa twice. We did a program out at Bard College she came to. And she became quite conscious herself. But most of my family and my coworkers and friends I think they thought I'd lost my mind. They loved me, and they wanted to warn me, of just, hey, be careful here, Steve. You really need to do this. So, and I respected that they loved me enough to want to share their truth. I just knew that they didn't really understand what I was supposed to do as well as I did.
Yeah, they were friends being cautious, and that's wonderful that you have wonderful friends like that. As a result of your transformation, Steve, and I want to just say what Patricia Wagner has shared. She says, Steve, living into being your true self has bequeathed an abundance inheritance for the world. And I think that just describes it very accurately. How would you comment on that?
I think where we awaken, all of us, this is New Universal Dream. That the New Universal Dream is understanding what ultimate reality is, and becoming a mature species here on the earth, where we understand UFOs are real. There are extraterrestrials, even among us embodied, that psychic skills are real, that energy healing is real, that raising our vibration in order to become good psychic people that can be in communication with the other side is real. These are real things where we become a mature species and start living that way. Now we will join with other beings, mature beings in the universe, and there are many, of course, highly evolved societies all over the universe. We'll find our place in this mature universe instead of this a planet that we've lived on where we've denied all of these things for so long and believed this whole lucky sperm go to bones and dust thing. That the universal dream is, let's live into the fullness of who we really are and live happy, excited, joyful, and committed, service-oriented lives.
I love that. Well, listen, we only have a few minutes left here. Can you tell us a little bit about Changing Humanity's Future Initiative? I think this is appropriate at this point.
Yeah, I want to invite people, go to changinghumanitiesfuture.org, changinghumanitiesfuture.org, because there on the page you're going to see a lot, action steps, things we can do to live consciously. Ken and I have only covered a few here. You'll also see the science. There's a page that says confirmations of a conscious reality, and all of these science and notable people down through time that have talked about oneness. Also Neil's Conversations with God books. It's all there on the confirmations page. So there are tons of resources. What Changing Humanity's Future is about becoming a voice and becoming an activist in today's world for what we've been talking about here, Ken, where it's ourself with a capital S, where we understand we're one and we're supporting ourselves and our family living consciously in the whole world. We're joining with regenerative agriculture efforts. We're joining with many of these conscious business efforts. We're doing things to support awakening and conscious living and nurturing life here on the planet. You mentioned earlier, Ken, you believed in microcosm, macrocosm, that there's a connection. This is a really key thing here when we talk about changing humanity's future. As we start living holistically into really who we really are, the things we're talking about here, watch the world around us change. The two are directly connected. The collective will change as more and more of us individually wake up and start living as a mature species here on the earth. And that's the whole point of changing humanity's future, to be a voice in these conversations that are going on where people are really quite depressed and disempowered today, feeling anxiety, even I mentioned depression because of today's world. We don't want to veer south like that. There's a movement that has started that is about not giving birth anymore and just letting our whole species decline and go away entirely because of the state of the world. I mean, why would we want to do that? You know, we're well into this great shift of the ages already. Let's just keep going here. Yeah, we don't need to be thinking that we're going to go extinct as a species. We need to be doing this metaphysical work, and also with our hands and in matter on a day-to-day basis, doing the things that support our own conscious living and conscious living out on the planet. That's what changing humanity's future is, and we're saying that by 2040, 17 years from now, that the whole world is becoming conscious, and we're melting away this whole optical delusion thing, this separation thing that was at the basis of these challenges that we have in today's world.
Well, I love what you're saying here, Steve. We're talking about living fearlessly, not fear-based living. And we're talking about stepping into the brilliance that we are. And Steve, I'm going to ask our audience to do two things. Number one, I'm going to ask you to go today, take action after you listen to one of these amazing experiences like this. Take action. Go and buy a new Universal Dream, step one. And step two, for the next 7 days, I encourage you to live consciously. Do something that you haven't done for 7 days in a row that would bring more consciousness into your own life. So I'd like to challenge our audience to do that, Steve. Any final thoughts?
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. That's a beautiful, beautiful way to end this, Ken, is because we're not just talking heads here. We're in service here. Ken Foster, by the way, what a wonderful man in service. And I hope Ken will take the last couple minutes to tell you about his television and radio and books and things. He's, he talks about people of courage. So he can maybe chat about that the last couple of minutes. But the whole reason for us being here and talking about the book is really to support you. It's no accident that you showed up here. Your still small voice said, be here, tune into this program. You know, some of you are on social media. Some of you are on the green screen here in the room with us. Doesn't matter. So yeah, just invite you to take action based on the things that we're talking about. That's where the real fruit is. It's not an understanding, that first E, education is important, but we got to keep going, embody, express, and engage. And then it all happens for us, and it all happens out in the world.
I love it. Well, thank you for that, Steve. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. I appreciate this opportunity to be with you and to launch this new book into the world. And it's more than a book. It's really the new Universal Dream. And we're launching it. We're launching it. We're relaunching it. We're doing what we need to do. And I hope our audience will do the same. For those of you that don't know me or would like to find me, you can go to kendfoster.com. And my mission is to bring courage into the world in a much greater way. And I'd probably just leave it at this. The question that I'd like to leave you with is, if you were courageous, write it down. If I was courageous, what are the 3 action steps I would take today to bring more consciousness into the world? If I was courageous, what are the 3 action steps I would take today to bring more consciousness into the world? Do that for the next 7 days. Let's see what happens. Let's all do that. Let's start to bring in our brilliance, our joy, our love, our passion, our genius into the world. All right. That's it for me, Steve. Thank you for the opportunity.
Beautiful. Ken, thank you for being with me here on the air. Wonderful. And friends in the studio, we can see a lot of you that are on camera. I want to wave at you. Thanks for being here with us. Some of you are off camera, some are on camera. Always nice to have a live audience with us here in the studio. These are Humanities Stream members. And out on social media, again, Humanities Team, Ken Foster Friends, Sign Network. Hey, thank you all for being with us. And we're back with you next week with another exciting program, 9 a.m. Pacific. So love to all of you, and peace and blessings. Namaste, friends.